original idea for it sort of was sprang up here when Ted Treanor was here. He felt very at home. He suggested we should have a gathering of the Treanor connection.
We had monthly meetings here in this house here, and probably one of a great decision because it was a great homely atmosphere. We got things done, we got business done fairly early, and the whole lot. We had a couple of sessions of music and stuff like that. There, fantastic. The Treanor gathering was from the May the 9th, Thursday May the 9th to May the 12th, Sunday May the 12th.
On the first evening we had registration in the West End, and that was when most people would have been introduced to each other and to the group, in fact, because when you were registering you were finding out, you were putting faces to the names.
As well as that, some of them were actually related to each other and they didn't know each other, and I knew because I had dealt with them and knew their history, so I was able to say, that person, you're related to that person, and who are you, and all that.
After the registration then that evening we had a musical evening and a late food.
I think we had three types of people. We had the people who knew who they were, who knew that their people came from Monaghan. Maybe their grandfather came over to America or England or whatever, and they knew that that's where they were from. There was other people who knew that their ancestors were from Ireland, but they didn't know what part. And then there was the third people who hadn't a clue up to join the group, and then all of a sudden they may have thought they were German descent or English descent, and all of a sudden they were Irish.
There were Treanors of so many different spellings that they weren't even sure that they were all belonged to the same clan. But then to be able to come here to Monaghan, where Monaghan would probably be a pretty good heartland for Treanors, especially North Monaghan. And from there they were able to find out that, you probably did start off with one spelling, got to Ellis Island and somebody said, sounds like Treanor, sounds like Treanor, and the different spellings all led back to the same thing anyhow, all back to Treanor.
The Treanor came from Treinfhir, which is strong, not necessarily physically strong, but could be strong-willed.
Mental strong. Stubborn is another name for it.
Over time.
And then on Friday morning from about 10 o'clock to 12 the three talks were about that length.
But when I was doing research on Thomas Treanor, he was the only leader of the 1798 rebellion. He took over from Lord Edward Fitzgerald when Lord Edward Fitzgerald was arrested prior to the 1798 rebellion. There's a museum in Bennington and there's a Thomas Treanor collection in the museum. So I contacted the museum in Bennington and I said, listen, what information can you give us and all that. So they gave me a certain amount of information, but they said, listen, there was a man maybe 20 years ago contacted us, he was doing research, he has an awful lot of more information on Thomas Treanor than we have. So the next thing was I tried to source who Kieran Owens was and whatever, couldn't get him. And I happened to be over with Thomas Treanor in Valencia in Spain, who has he's a Marquis of Turio, and I was speaking to him and the whole lot. This is a year later, and he was saying to me, I have a very good friend now, and I says, have you? He says, yeah, a man called Kieran Owens. And I says, he's a man I'd love to speak to. And we linked up and we met and the whole lot. We were supposed to meet for a half an hour. 4 hours later we were still talking and the whole lot. And he gave me a commitment that he'd come to the gathering and give a speech about Thomas Treanor. He also gave a speech on the Trainors of Valencia, who he linked up to Thomas when he was researching Thomas Treanor.
And he basically goes on to say, Mr. Treanor was confined in the Birmingham Tower in the Castle Yard, along with Messrs. Byrne and McCann, who were later executed, and Treanor remained there for several weeks. When arrested, he wore a fine cloak, which he was allowed to retain in prison, and of which he made good use when the opportunity to escape presented itself. He asked for some hair powder and obtained it, and took his cloak with him one evening when he went to the toilet for prisoners, the cloak firmly pressed under his clothing, so that it was unobserved by the guards, and while they waited at the door to escort him back, he began talking aloud, and himself answering himself. Mr. Treanor was a ventriloquist himself, and his talent stood him in good stead on this occasion. To pretend that several persons were within the toilet, he hastily powdered his hair and whiskers, changed the shape of his hat, unfolded and put on his cloak, disguised his voice, walked out boldly, past the sentinel, who took him for one of the captains of the guard, and deliberately departed by the wicket gate, small gate of the castle.
There were bus tours in the afternoon to Clones and a cycle tour of Glasgow, walking tours of Monaghan Town. Paddy Sherry took people out to Slieve Bay and Knockatown out there where they walked for about 10 kilometres, I think. Most of it was done barefoot
and
through the bog,
and
most they loved it.
Absolutely, they'd say it was one of the, you know what I mean, the fact they'd never had experienced anything like that before.
They started to do it in their bare feet because it was too wet for their shoes. But they loved it.
They loved it. Paddy McQuaid done the bicycle tour of Asla and the whole lot. It's a fantastic village to go. It's really probably the only place in Monaghan that's really geared for tourism and the whole lot. But he had electric bikes and ordinary bikes, and people really enjoyed it. And the weather was really very good.
Very, very good.
Yeah.
And the next morning, on the Saturday morning, we had more talks.
The interesting thing about Y DNA is that Y DNA, the male DNA, mutates every 80 to 100 years. So it changes a little bit. Now, it doesn't mutate like X-Men. It doesn't give you superpowers. You can't jump over buildings and turn things into ice. It's not that kind of a mutation. They're little tiny mutations that have no effect on who we are, but you can track them. And you can say, oh, look, my DNA has changed a little bit in the last 100 years. And that gives us a tool because it allows us to measure not just who we're descended from, but also how long ago we might have been related to that person, and how long ago maybe you and I had a same common ancestor. So if I can track how many changes there are in my DNA, and you can track how many changes there are in your DNA, we can identify how long ago our last common ancestor was alive, which is an interesting pursuit. We can say how related we are.
Around 12:30, we went on the bus tours of North Monaghan. Errigal Graveyard, St Patrick's Treinfhir, Treinfhir, the church in Treinfhir, and up to Bragan to the cross, and out then through Slieve Bay and back down to America Cross. For the evening we had food and music, dancing and singing. It was an American party.
It was great.
Best. It was the highlight of the weekend.
Absolutely.
Really.
And the fact that people from abroad got up and involved themselves in the Siege of Venice.
Yes, and the sing-songs and
the sing-songs and the whole lot, and they really got that. Do you know what I mean? And it may not be, I don't know, it wouldn't be as much of the culture as we probably hear and the whole lot, but it definitely, they were won over by that.
So it was kind of decided that 2 years time in 2021. From that, there was 7 headings.
Yeah.
And
they broke up into groups.
And each group
outlined a few headings that people might or might not be interested in, and people give in their own ideas. You know, some people said they thought we should write a book or write something, and other people wanted to set up tracing of their ancestors, and then there was one group wanted to focus on the next gathering. We moved into Sunday evening where we had flags. Everybody brought their own flag. I didn't. Most people brought their own flag, and I had a photographic event, if you like, where people held up their flag for all the different parts. And then we had a gala dinner on Sunday night in the Four Seasons with a little bit of music before it, a few thank yous, and that was it, because people were travelling back early some people were travelling back early the next day, some people were staying on in Ireland and going further afield, and some people were just going to relax for another few days around Monaghan.
And some people were quite tired at that stage and just wanted to
4 days, 4 days, a long time, but it was great. The other thing is, after all, we've had a number of visitors here who visited since that.
Yes.
So, on the strength of the gathering, people are now saying, well, I wasn't able to go to that, I heard about it, I'm in Ireland, and that's the whole thing. Instead of maybe going to the Blarney Stone, they're now coming back to here. And that's one of the things that we tried to achieve.